If you're running a small business, you know the grind. I mean, getting quotes out the door and cash in the bank, that's your lifeblood, right? But what if little errors and delays in that exact process are quietly killing your profits? Okay, let's dive into a real-world case study that shows exactly how to plug that leak.
First things first, let's bust a huge myth right out of the gate. When you hear a Lean Six Sigma, you probably think of massive corporations, right? The reality? It is hands down one of the most powerful tools you can use to give your small business an immediate, measurable financial boost.
And forget all the complicated jargon. For your business, it all boils down to two really simple, practical things. Lean is all about speed, slashing the time your customers have to wait for anything. And Six Sigma? That's all about quality, stopping those costly mistakes that make you waste time, money, and energy on rework. So, how do you actually find these hidden profits in your own business? Well, it all starts with a pretty fundamental shift in how you look at things. You've got to learn to see your business exactly the way your customer does.
And the core principle here is incredibly simple, but so powerful. Value is only what the customer is actually willing to open their wallet and pay for. That's it. Every single step, every delay, every task that doesn't directly contribute to that is considered waste, and that waste becomes your target. To find that waste, you do something called a Gemba walk. All that means is you physically walk the path your service takes from the first call to the final payment, and you ask 3 brutally honest questions from your customer's perspective. 1, where do I have to wait? 2, where do you guys make mistakes? And 3, what are all the steps you're doing that I, the customer, couldn't care less about?
All right, so let's look at a real-world small manufacturer that did exactly this. They took a hard look at their quote-to-cash process. That entire journey from the moment they send a sales quote to the moment they get paid.
And you know what? Their Gemba walk immediately uncovered a massive problem. Because they were doing all their quotes by hand, a staggering 15% of them had errors. Now, this wasn't just some internal headache. It was delaying them getting contracts signed by an average of 10 days. That is 10 full days of cash that isn't in the bank.
And this pointed them to 3 of the biggest profit killers that you see in small businesses all the time. First up, defects. Constantly having to fix and resend those quotes. Second, waiting. Sales staff just sitting on their hands waiting for corrected quotes or for a manager to approve something. And finally, and this is a big one, misusing talent. They had their best, highest-paid salespeople doing mind-numbing, routine data entry. Okay, so they found the problem. That's the easy part, right? But how did they actually fix it? Well, they used a brilliantly simple framework to diagnose and solve the issue, and it's something any of us can apply, like today. It's called DMake Lite. And honestly, the best way to think about it isn't as some complicated management theory. It's more like a routine maintenance checklist for a critical piece of machinery in your shop. Just a simple, repeatable sequence you run to find a problem and make sure it stays fixed for good. So let's map their fix to this model. It's a 5-step loop: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. They kicked things off with M for measure. See, before you can fix anything, you gotta have a number. Their number was that 15% error rate on quotes. That was the baseline, the number they had to beat. Next up is A for analyze. And this is where they used a super powerful idea called the Pareto principle. You've probably heard of it as the 80-20 rule. The concept is that in pretty much any system, the vast majority of your problems, like 80% of them, are caused by just a tiny handful of root causes. The trick is just finding that vital few. And their analysis was crystal clear. Almost all of their headaches came from just 2 sources. The quote templates themselves had errors in them, and the manual, repetitive data entry it took to fill them out. They didn't need to overhaul everything. They just needed to fix those 2 things. So, and this is really the crucial point here, instead of launching some massive, complicated 6-month project to redo their entire sales department, they focused all their energy on a small, surgical, targeted fix. Which brings us to I for improve. The fix itself was just beautiful in its simplicity. They cut out 3 redundant approval steps that added 0 value. But more importantly, they error-proofed their digital quote templates. They added things like drop-down menus and required fields, making it physically impossible for someone to generate a new quote if it had missing or wrong information. And the result? Whoa. The error rate absolutely plummeted. It went from a really costly 15% all the way down to just 2%. A simple, targeted fix led to this massive leap in quality. But, a lower error rate is just a number on a page. What does that actually mean for the money in your bank account?
Let's get to the good part, the results, and see how this turns into a real financial return.
When they sat down and calculated the full financial impact, factoring in the tiny cost of the project versus the huge gains in speed and quality, this simple fix delivered a stunning 470% return on investment in the first year alone.
So where on earth did that incredible number come from? It's a mix of two things. First, you've got hard savings. That's direct, cold, hard cash from things like preventing mistakes and closing more sales faster. Then you have soft savings, which is the financial value of all the employee time they got back from doing pointless admin work.
In total, this little project generated over $68,000 in annual benefits. And just look at this breakdown. The vast majority, over $56,000 of it, was hard cash savings that went straight to the company's bottom line. The rest was time they gave back to their team to focus on selling, not paperwork.
Look, a huge return is fantastic, but the job isn't done yet. The final step in this whole process is arguably the most important one, making absolutely, positively sure the problem never, ever comes back.
This is the C phase, control. To make these gains permanent, they created what's called standard work. It was basically just a simple one-page checklist that laid out the new, error-proofed one best way to create a quote. This just ensures that everyone follows the better process every single time, no exceptions.
When you boil it all down, this whole case study proves a vital point for any business owner. Improving your process is nice, but if you don't actually measure the financial impact, it's just a theory. The moment you attach real dollars to your improvements, it becomes an undeniable, powerful business strategy.
So this leaves us with one final question for you. You've seen the blueprint. You know the framework. What is the single biggest profit killer? That one constant delay, that one recurring mistake that you could go hunt down in your own business to put more money back in your pocket this week.